electric boogaloo.
Yes. So we have survived another year. We've done it.
We've survived another year.
Was it a rough one?
It was a very rough one.
Yeah.
Like, emotionally, psychologically, financially. It was very rough.
But then exciting and new all in one.
Well, now it's exciting and new. I think
Yeah.
the other day, it was great. I had this, like, because I've been working through a lot of trauma and a lot of hard things. But I had this realization. It was like, like I could finally breathe. I was like, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing.
It's good, yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. I had my big hurrah moment in the fall, and then after that, everything kind of went downhill, and now I'm trying to slowly get myself back up.
Crawl back
for my
up.
next mission.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's always a mission.
Well, yeah, it's going to be good. But welcome, everyone, to Freaks of a Feather. I'm Emily Wooten, and this is...
Mary Boom. Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi, hello.
Yes.
I am wearing green makeup today because we are going to be talking about the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders, which I don't know why I said it so weird, because it's a very serious, very sad and scary thing. So, apologize.
but it was my mother's birthday. Her birthday is on January 1st. And she suggested that we cover them because she would have been a little girl during the 1977 Girl Scout murders in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I was never a Girl Scout. You were, briefly.
I was briefly. But man, Kristen Chenoweth.
We watched a lot of documentaries on this. So I don't want none of these comments being like, well, that documentary. We've had many sources.
Yeah.
Just like we did on JonBenet Ramsey.
I'll list a whole reference of what you can watch and what books you can read on the bottom. And feel free.
Feel free.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Kristen Chenoweth, the one documentary that's on Prime... I like Kristen Chenoweth, don't get me wrong, but it was what they could have told you in 40 minutes. They drug out into 4-hour-long episodes.
Yeah.
And it was mostly dramatic shots of Kristen Chenoweth whipping her ponytail around, being like, I just think about how it could have been me.
I was going to go on that Girl Scout trip, but I was sick. It could have been me.
It could have been me. And fine, that's, you know, I like Kristen Chenoweth, cool, you know. But they showed that they talked about that thing so much.
Yeah.
It always came back to, it could have been me.
It could have been me.
It could have been me. I was like, how many times are they gonna...
I know.
How many times?
But let me tell you who it was, though.
Yeah.
It was Lori Farmer, just 8 years old. Michelle Gousset, 9. And Doris Milner, 10 years old. They went to Camp Scott in Oklahoma, near Locust Grove and the Cookson Hills area, which will be important later. I'll discuss why Cookson Hills is important later.
Yeah.
But all of these 3 girls didn't know each other prior, but they would soon be forever bonded in the most traumatic way,
most horrible way
ever
ever
imaginable.
Yeah, so this is not a happy story.
No.
So if child abuse, sexual abuse of any kind is triggering to you, which, I mean, most people, but some people have PTSD. Not
This
for
is
you.
your moment.
No,
Yeah.
this is your moment to bow out.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
because it's not great. It's not great.
No. But yeah, the girls all loaded a bus in Tulsa, Oklahoma to head away near Locust Grove to Camp Scott for 2 weeks on a Girl Scouts camp adventure. And not all of the girls were very excited about this trip, let me tell you.
It sounds like Michelle Gousset had been a Girl Scout since 74, I think I remember them saying. And so she was seasoned.
Yeah.
So she was excited, you know.
She'd been there before.
Lori was the youngest.
Yeah, she was just 8.
She was just 8 years old.
Yeah.
She was described as very sweet, loving older sister. Michelle Gousset, I think her parents had, like, passed away in the more recent documentaries.
Yeah, the ones
they're
that
not
are in
involved.
2022. There's like 96, and then 2022 there's 2 different documentaries. So,
but they don't really talk about Michelle, so we don't really know that much about her. I think she played soccer, but she was adorable. I mean, little kids with glasses are cute. Just so cute. But the one who wasn't excited was Denise Milner. I think she went by Denise, but Doris is her first name.
Yeah.
You'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. She was not excited to go to camp. This was her first time ever. So think of the apprehension to anything new when you're younger, and then your parents encouraging you. Yes, let's experience something new. Let's learn how to be independent, and that's very much what her mother wanted her to do. And she did.
And she was very smart, Denise Milner. Just as she was a very bright little girl. She was already accepted into this special middle school, and she was only 10. She had, like, taught herself mathematics and whatnot when she was, like, 4. Like, she was
very brilliant,
very smart kid. But yeah, she told her mom she didn't want to go. She's like, okay, just go, and, you know, if you don't like it, we'll come and we'll pick you up.
Yeah.
Right? So.
But, nonetheless, they all pulled away. They waved goodbye to their daughters. And what they didn't know is this was going to be the last time that they would ever see them. Now.
Alive. Yeah.
The previous months, Camp Scott prepared for all of the Girl Scouts to be there. This was a big production with the Girl Scouts of America. Like,
a lot of different, I think, troops.
There's a lot of different troops there on Kiowa, which was furthest away, more isolated than all the other troops. So the wilderness around them was very uncharted, and you wouldn't expect people to be out and about in that area.
No, yeah, and so there's a lot of Girl Scout troops. They were all named after Native American tribes. So there was the Cherokee. Well, it's because that area is so steeped in indigenous culture, and like everywhere is. Yeah, everything was named after tribes. Yep. They were in Kiowa. They were the farthest away from the center base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the camp counselors for the months previous would prepare for the Girl Scouts coming, and Carla Wilhite, she's in a lot of these documentaries. She kind of changes her stories here and there, but let's remember that she was also probably a teenager at this time. I mean, she was. And most camp counselors are just teenagers, and this is scary for them too.
And it's not like this anymore because of this.
Unfortunately, tragic things happen, and it changes things sometimes for the better. But Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts are steeped in drama, and
Well, better would be that we don't have to make precautions like that.
Yeah.
Better would be like, just people should be safe with other people.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But.
Yeah.
Yeah, they set things up despite a lot of weird things happening in those months leading up to the Girl Scouts coming.
And, okay. Just, I'm going to describe what is it, I want you to know, say in the comments, is it going to surprise you? Okay, would it surprise you that the first thing the directors of the camp, the first thing they did when they found out these kids were dead, they called their lawyers?
Yeah.
Is that surprising to you? No. When I tell you that a week before these little girls were coming to stay in this area, there had been a person sneaking around the camp, specifically Kiowa, slicing into tents.
Specifically the ones that the girls were murdered in.
But going into all of the tents and stealing glasses, stealing purses, and they left a threat in an empty donut box that said something to the effect of, I'm going to kill 3 Girl Scouts.
Yeah. They mentioned tent 1, and then some people were like, oh, well, it's just a prank and whatever. I'm like, well, in my head, I'm like, well, that's a sick prank. Maybe we should investigate our employees, you know, but...
So, again, are you surprised that the first people they called were their lawyers? Just because...
Hey, but nonetheless, the premeditated threat there.
Yeah.
They went ahead. They loaded up a bus in Tulsa, Oklahoma with hundreds of Girl Scouts. Not including, well, including their camp. There were about 26 or so, correct me if I'm wrong, at that tent, or at that Kiowa.
And like, to give them credit, like, unless you're a very, very anxiety-ridden person like myself, I mean, if you're just like tra-la-la, you know, rainbows coming out of Pollyanna's ass kind of person, you wouldn't, the first thing you jump to isn't like, oh, that. They mean it.
Yeah.
You would think, oh, this is a joke. They're just being teenagers. And they're just doing, you know.
But still, but then again, you got to think this was a different time. And then after something like, this time was a very innocent time where you could be a child. You could run around with your bike after the streetlights came on. Like, you were very much alone in that sense where adults could be trusted for the most part.
Well.
And then things like this happen and it changes your expectations of what humans are capable of.
Right, I think societally in the 70s, 60s, you know, it was just kind of like accepted that kids will be kids and fuck them, you know, they're not gonna, like, instead of taking seriously protecting their children, they're just like, it's on you.
The effort and the hardships that come with being a responsible adult. Things are differently.
Right.
But did Richard or Barbara Day, the directors of the camp, take those threats and those weird vibes seriously? No.
No.
They didn't.
It's just like...
All of these Girl Scouts came there, and then Camp Kiowa was where 3 girls, Lori, Michelle, and Doris, camped. And their tent was the furthest tent away from the counselor's tent. So imagine this sprawling amount of acreage. There's 400 acres involved in this entire Girl Scout camp, okay? Their camp is set out like a horseshoe.
Kiowa itself is out at the very
furthest,
edge.
It's the most isolated.
And then within that, they were in the tent that was the furthest from the counselor.
Yes, and there was
they were
a shower room and bathrooms blocking this linear view from the counselor's tent to their tent. So you really didn't have a good eyesight of what was going on. And then you
literally they were the back of the herd. They were.
And then you add insult to injury, and later that night, of course, their first night, there is a thunderstorm. And there's torrential rainfall. Everybody calls it a night. They go to their tents. They get comfortable. A lot of girls, this is their first night camping out, especially for poor Denise or Doris or whatever you want to call her.
Yeah, so they had to, they were writing letters home, because this is... I guess something usually, you do in Girl Scouts.
Yeah, you can't text them. So they're writing the letters.
Which is sweet. Making, that's sweet. My heart. But...
Until you get a post-mortem letter from your daughter that was murdered.
Because they mailed it, and then the parents found out they were dead the next day before the letters got there. Woof.
God.
But essentially, Lori was excited, so was Michelle, but Denise was just miserable.
Tell them about the premonition.
Oh my
Doris
God.
had.
Yeah, okay, so Doris, Denise, whatever.
Yeah.
I think they say Denise a lot.
Yeah.
Denise, the day before her mom shipped her off to Camp Scout, she was, which, she didn't know this was going to happen. Yeah. So I don't mean to be crass by saying she shipped her off, but she didn't know. But She asked her mom, what happens when you die, which her mom was like, kind of gave like a lukewarm answer of like, oh, people die and then new people are born, life goes on, kind of thing, like as you would to a kid.
Yeah.
But and then she looks at her mother and she goes, well, everyone's gonna die tomorrow. What? And then she actually ended up dying.
Which, if you watch the 2022 documentaries, they don't speak of this. But the one in 1996, they do mention that. I'm like, whoa, where was this information?
Exactly.
But that's haunting.
And it's not just, it's her mother saying this.
Yeah. So it's tragic, but she didn't want to stay there 2 whole weeks. She shared that discomfort with her mother. And that evening was going to be a long one. Not only was there a horrible thunderstorm, but the counselors were trying to do their best as young adults to try to...
Not even, just young adults,
just
older children.
Yeah.
Don't.
And they're all in their tents by themselves. These children don't have another,
there's not a chaperone.
There's no camp counselor. There's no chaperone like what you would see now, especially 2 of them,
And there's and so for all of these kids, there's 2 teenagers that are in charge of the whole
Peru.
Fuck.
It's the wild, wild west, okay?
This was really back in the day where parents were like, I'm having my me time over here with my cigarettes, my brandy. You just do you. Go in the road. Play with roadkill, do whatever you need to each other. If you have to eat your little brother, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, boomers are still going to complain that kids don't drink out of water hoses and, stay out to the street lights. Come on.
Back in the day, we were
But then they're
beloved.
also in the same breath, they're like, man, these atrocities. Carla Wilhite did her rounds around 10:30 or so. Everything seemed fine and dandy. She eventually made her way back to the counselor's tent. Now, I will say there were 8 tents in this horseshoe at their campsite in general. Now, sometimes they count the counselor's tent and say there's 8. Sometimes they just say 7 and they don't count the counselor's tent. So whether I say 7 or 8, please don't get confused. I mean, it varies. But she went and she did her rounds. Everything seemed fine until around 1:30 in the morning. There was a disturbance and she was awoken in the middle of the night.
She woke up and then... It
wasn't just her.
It wasn't just her because the surrounding encampments had seen a light going around. Just a little light that was
a little bit around the camp, disappear
around Camp Kiowa.
Yeah.
And I know the Cherokee camp said that they saw that the counselors saw a light just moving,
like a pin light almost.
And they're thinking oh, it's one of the kids or something like that. But she gets Wilhite gets woken up early in the morning, and in a later interview she'll say she went out and because she heard this growling noise. Yeah. And the closer she got to the growling noise, if it saw her light, it would stop. And then she would and then it would start again. And as she moved again and it was more aware, it would stop again. Which she was just afraid. I mean, I can imagine that she didn't investigate further. Yeah. And I'm sure she lives with a lot of guilt over that, but at the same time,
she's young.
What
she's
the
scared.
fuck is she supposed to do?
They can't text 911. She's gonna have to run several yards.
She's probably gonna get fucking stabbed or murdered as well, because it's probably lucky in her case that she did turn back.
Yeah. But she assumed it was just an animal. Talked to the other camp counselors when she got back to the tent. They're like, it's probably just an animal. You better not go poke the bear, in other words. Other campers heard some disturbing screams coming from Milner and Farmer and Michelle's tent. Gousset's tent,
Mm-hmm.
screaming. Somebody even heard somebody crying out for their mother.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
And this is something, that part, they don't talk about in the most recent documentaries at all. Which is kind of important. They kind of just like, oh, it's mysterious. Nobody heard anything. And we woke up and these girls were dead. But that's not true from original reports.
You would think that story would come out later as the girls get old enough to tell their... Because these are little girls also that are camping, that are hearing these things, that are telling their story. But for some reason in 96, I
think it really is because
it's a liability thing.
I really do think it is that because the parents sued Girl Scouts of America after this for negligence because of all the shit they knew about before they'd sent their kids there. And I think they're painting it in this corner where like the counselors, oh, nobody heard anything. It was so mysterious.
Yeah.
When in reality, they probably did hear them, but they think that they're just like playing or just like, well, whatever. Yeah. They don't give a fuck.
But they weren't liable. They, that they tried to sue two of the families for $5 million, and it didn't work.
Right? Yeah. But anyways, the proof is in the pudding. The other little girls say that they definitely heard a scream, someone crying, somebody moving around, and he opened one of the other tents before he got to
tent number
7.
6, the one, so there's, the camp counselors and then ascending all the numbers, and the tent before that, somebody had ripped open the canvas and went in there, shined the light on the little girls. Yeah. Left. So again, this is something that seems premeditated, and a lot of people feel like this person in particular was after Doris Denise Milner.
Yeah.
Is what some of the documentaries... That
she was targeted, racially.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, the little girls, like, they knew something, it's just like, it's one of those things, it's like, what are you... I mean, if you're a kid, what are you gonna do? Yeah. Like...
Nonetheless.
Yeah.
The next morning, I'll let you pick up from there. The next morning's rough. I'll let her go through this a little bit.
They heard these noises throughout the night. Wilhite, of course, went and looked, and she heard the growling, got skeeved out, went back to the tent. But, again, they're not thinking that, oh, there's a fucking evil murderer lurking around the tent. So the next morning, Wilhite, again, she says in the 1996 documentary that she wanted to get to the showers early before everyone. And so she has to start down this dirt road to get there. And immediately she sees the nude, half-covered body of Denise Milner. Half in the road, half off of the road. Half of her is covered with a sleeping bag. The other half, we don't know how she was positioned, is out. And she said immediately when she saw her, she knew she was dead. So she was beaten very badly.
She thought it was just the one, and she was innocently assuming, okay, the kid got scared, ran into a tree, and
her mind was trying to...
Passed out, maybe, or something. Like, she's not assuming the worst possible outcome here.
Yeah, she's like, I just didn't know what to think. Like, how does this happen? And then she noticed that... Also, she had noticed before she saw the body that there were just a bunch of sleeping bags there.
Yeah. They called over the camp director's husband, who was an ER nurse, and he went over there, and not only was Denise there, but the other two girls.
They picked up the bags, and they felt how
the weight of them.
The weight of them in the sleeping bags. And so and that was after, simultaneously, because all this shit is happening all at the same time.
Bam, 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 all at once. And 6 a.m. in the morning.
He's picking up the bags as another camp counselor is screaming back, "We are missing 3 girls in tent 7. And at the same time, just simultaneously, he picking up his bag, and they're heavy.
Yeah.
And they're not moving. And so, but the directors notified their lawyers first.
Yeah. Yep.
Which makes me feel a certain way about it. I'm like,
Given that they still work for the Girl Scouts of America.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very
interesting.
Weird. Yeah.
But basically they called the cops.
Yeah.
It was swamped with police cars and mostly reporters, like a lot of reporters.
Who did not handle the scene very pragmatically. Like, there was some stuff that got out in the media that shouldn't have got out in the media so soon.
The girls' parents are getting notified one by one. I think the Goussets got notified first by the director, who they said that she told them that what was her name? Michelle was hurt. They didn't tell them that she was dead.
Yeah.
Then Lori and the farmers, Lori's parents, got notified, and he was at work, and they pulled him over to the nurse's station and told him that Lori had passed away. Just, vague. And so, of course, he gets home and he tells his wife and all that shit. And then the last one they told was Denise.
Which they couldn't get a hold of her.
Denise's mother, yeah. They couldn't get a hold of her because you don't have a cell phone and she's like working at a school or... So they come to the school and they tell her what happened. They tell her that and I think Denise's mother said that they said she had been murdered. So you're getting all of this information. You can just visualize how the trickle-down effect is happening, like people coming to conclusions as the chain of calls come down the line. They're like putting it together.
It's horrible, but the stuff that actually happened to these girls, like, they're all three dead, crumpled up in their sleeping bags.
Except for Denise, who was half out.
Denise was apparently the last one to leave the tent. The other two, Lori and Michelle, were bludgeoned and strangled and tied back, raped. I don't know if it was outside of the tent or in it, but they were removed, and then Denise was the last one to leave the tent. All three girls were raped and murdered.
Or raped, and other sources say molested. But the one definitively that they know was raped was Denise.
Yeah.
But again, that brings on a lot of like just a lot of questions for me, specifically like, it's either... It's like, how do you just silently go in there and kill a bunch of kids with nobody hearing you?
Yeah. So those noises that were heard in the middle of the night...
Somebody is not telling the truth.
Yeah.
Which, that's fine. Whatever. Because unless he has a rag full of chloroform and he's just going in there and one by one putting them to sleep. If a little kid gets woken up by their neighbor getting bludgeoned to death, they're gonna scream.
Well, I think that's what some of the campers heard, because they said in one of the documentaries that whoever killed them, allegedly, used excessive force for little girls.
Enough to where Will Height stumbled upon her body, that immediately she knew she was dead.
Yeah. But then Lori, when they got her out of the sleeping bag, they were like, she looked like she was sleeping, and they had a lot of trouble like realizing that she was dead. It's horrible.
Oh, but there's definitely signs that she had been messed with. Yeah, gross.
They went into more detail in the documentaries. I'm not going to reiterate that, but there was a large red flashlight found that had been duct taped, and then there was just this pinhole cut out of the middle, so it wouldn't emit a lot of light. It would just be just enough to see where you're stepping, just enough to get into a tent or anything like that, which is very indicative of like what they had seen the night prior.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh, yeah. Cherokee had seen the light.
Yeah.
Moving, yeah.
So they had seen that. There was also, fingerprints that were maybe smudged that they could get some identification from. There was a footprint found in the tent with a puddle of blood.
Oh, there was blood everywhere.
Yeah. And he tried to clean it up. He tried to it.
He tried to clean, and this is fucked. This is a detail they give in the earlier ones. He used the bed sheets to try to mop up there's so much blood all over the ground. He tried to use the bed sheets on each of the beds to mop up the blood, and then he stuffed them in the same sleeping bags that he stuffed their bodies in.
Yeah. Just tiny little girls.
Like they were just like trash. Just
It's horrible, but they did get a bloody footprint that matched a 9.5 shoe size found from the blood in the tent. Yeah. So what they had done is they actually airlifted the platform. So this was a canvas-sized tent. There was cots, the sleeping bags on top of the cots, and then there was a wooden platform. So they actually took that platform and they used it for investigation purposes to be able to figure out,
that's pretty cool.
To trace the DNA. They didn't really do much with it until the 80s. I mean,
well, yeah, it was in its infancy.
Yeah,
DNA testing.
All of that developed over time, but they secured the camp.
They took the. Yeah,
the remaining girls, their families. I can't imagine how fucking scared they were.
Can you imagine how fucking stressful? You're a teenager, okay? Yeah. You're a camp counselor. Jesus. They get you all together. You just hear by word of mouth.
Yeah.
Oh my God, 3 of the kids are dead. We can't tell any of the other kids. You guys have to fucking figure out how to distract them.
Ooh.
Can you?
That's horrible. They load them all up on the bus. Send them. They sent them
on a hike first.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went on a hike first
to
distract them until the buses got there. Or did someone said arts and crafts or something but these are fucking teenagers who know. God. 3 of these. Oh my God.
It's I feel bad for them too. That's horrible. That's
awful.
Fucking, and the guilt. Oh my God. But it's not their fault. No. It still sucks though. But yeah, they're loaded up. They're sent to Tulsa. The parents are pretty much phoned, hey, go pick up your kids if they're there. Essentially, if they're there. And they waited one by one to wait and see if their daughter came off that bus. And
they pretty.
I don't know what that pressure was about that. Why they had to do it that way. Pretty much all they knew is that there was something bad that happened. Only one day into camp, so something's bad.
Right, but
Shit's popping off in the news way too fast.
Well, there are a bunch of there's a bunch of reporters that are going and loose lips blabbing. Yeah.
Not only did they find out that they were gone, but they found out the manner that they had died. They were raped. They were murdered in the night. This was, one of the girls, it was her birthday that following weekend. It was another one, her parents' anniversary was, the next day.
Jesus.
It's just...
Oh, fuck.
It's really rough. It's really rough. God.
It's not good.
But man, they sent out all type of people to canvass the 400 acres.
Oh, yeah.
They sent out even wonder dogs from Pennsylvania that were really good, pretty much bloodhounds that were out.
That could smell anything.
Yeah,
find anybody.
But they ran into some issues, didn't they? Because the story gets a little bit weird.
So there's a ton of people canvassing this area, trying to find evidence. Mm-hmm. Murder weapon, I don't know, crazed lunatic in a diaper.
Yeah.
Trying to find whatever. And so they do find something, which is very interesting. They find a cave. Mm-hmm. And in this cave, there are several very interesting items.
Yeah.
There are 4 little unique piles of burnt ash. Mm-hmm. Very weird, which they said that
It's indicative of Native American culture.
American culture. It was the series of 4 and burning like
tobacco,
cedar and stuff.
There was the cigarettes too, where they said they wouldn't actually use the filter and they would just use the straight tobacco.
Yeah, there was a bunch of filters that had been picked off that hadn't been smoked through, and so one of the cops happened to be Native American. He was like, "This is a Native person."
Yeah,
who was here.
Yeah.
They also found a
pair of lace panties that had been stolen
red
from...
panties.
Yeah.
They found glasses.
Somebody's prescription glasses.
Prescription glasses that were from the camp that belonged to a counselor who had had their glasses stolen the week prior. And then they had a couple of pictures. And so they traced back these pictures to this prison photographer, this fucking weird ass, like, who worked with one of the prisoners that he worked with was this guy named
Jean Leroy Hart.
And the only reason that is really struck them is because Leroy Hart had already been arrested and sent to prison for raping 2 pregnant women and leaving them to die in the woods.
He escaped from jail. In the Locust Grove area. He grew up there, and Sheriff Weaver had it out for him because he escaped his prison twice. So they tried to say that, Sheriff Weaver planted that picture. He had it in his desk. He knew, and he didn't like Jean Hart and blah, blah, blah. Because the community had a bleeding heart for Hart. No. They were... Oh, God.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. So, Jean Leroy Hart was very beloved because he was a great athlete. Which I can see.
He was their little small town football sweetheart.
No, but even more than that, because he's an indigenous person, it's like you have that kind of...
They also didn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, a lot of them they're like, we don't want to mess with this. We don't,
Yeah, there is a lot.
But he was beloved.
People are like, I know him. He wouldn't do that. Even though,
he was already convicted of raping 2 pregnant women and leaving them to die in the woods.
He tied them up to a tree, taped their eyes, their mouth, and everything shut, and they narrowly escaped with their lives.
And they identified him.
He was in jail. He escaped. He had been a fugitive in the
woods.
Well,
then he went to prison, and then he escaped. And he had been living... There were rumors he was living in that forest. Well, now they had conclusive evidence to prove that he had been in that forest hiding out.
Being a Native American, he was an experienced woodsman. He knew how to cover up his tracks in the woods. So
4 years.
For 4 years. So some people say, I don't know why these wonder dogs couldn't track his scent. Some people say, he knew how to cover it up. Other people took that Native American flair and they said, he's a shapeshifter. He's a skinwalker.
Well, I think there legitimately were Native people who do believe that.
There was people that believed that, and then that one detective even, I remember, protected himself in this because there were weird happenings. One of the wonder dogs had actually died.
Yeah, supposedly they had heard a rumor that a shaman
from another medicine man that
the dogs would die. Somebody had put a curse on the dogs.
Yeah.
And then, lo and behold,
one dies.
Weird.
But some people say it was from the heat, but it is strange.
It is very strange.
It is very strange
because these dogs, they would be following his scent. So now they're looking for Leroy Hart. Okay, they're looking for him. The dogs are following this scent, and then it would all of a sudden disappear. They get so far, they would get from the camp out to the middle of the woods, and it would just disappear, as if he just evaporated or like
Yeah.
took flight or
Yeah.
just like.
So there was a lot of superstition, but then again, this area was also the Cookson Hills area that he had kind of been a fugitive in for a long time, which
and
is
he
this
probably
very
knew they
vast-
would use.
It's a desolated area, and it's part of the Cherokee Nation. And during the Depression era, there was Charles Arthur Pretty Boy Floyd that had been a criminal within that area. Floyd, Rufus Buck, the Dalton Gang, the Doolins, and of course, fugitive Gene Leroy Hart. And a lot of people, that was where they escaped because it was a really rough terrain to be able to track somebody and find them. So it was a good place to hide.
It was a good place to hide, yeah.
But
10
months later, they found him, though.
They found
10
him
months later.
because someone told the story that they, one of the officers said that he did like a ritual or something to bring him to find where Hart was. Simultaneously, when he was doing this ritual, because he was a Native American police officer, it's funny because simultaneously he's doing this ritual to find Hart. And then one of the other officers happens to be in a bar and they're talking about Hart, and they find someone who tells them they know where he is. Yeah. They figure it out.
Yeah.
And very interesting. Yeah. So
he was staying with another medicine man named Sam Pigeon. And the whole thing is, even Sam Pigeon says, hey, Gene says he didn't do this. Yes, was he a rapist piece of shit and I was protecting him? Yeah. But, nonetheless, he was there. He was hiding there. They surround the area with police. They draw him out. And they find some interesting stuff for evidence.
Yeah, they find a little blue mirror, pocket mirror that leads back. That was owned by one of the camp counselors. What else do they find on him?
Something else.
They did their
corncob pipe that was also belonged to one of the camp counselors or something like that.
And he was clearly wearing women's glasses.
That did not belong to him.
That did not belong to him. They belonged to, I think, a counselor. So he was there.
Yeah, and not to mention the flashlight, the way that he used the flashlight, the way that they were bound. The newspaper, all of these actually even connected to his previous crimes, but...
They found the tape, they found the newspaper that was connected to the thing.
All pointed to him. Yet,
but people...
In March of 1979, even though he was charged with the killings and stood trial, pleading his innocence, the town having this bleeding heart of Locust Grove, they loved him. They knew him since he was a kid. They also didn't want to touch that racial thing with a 10-foot pole, okay? They acquitted him. But he was still a rapist, and he was convicted, and he owed 305 to 306 years of his time. So he was going to jail.
Going back to prison either way.
Why they protected a rapist?
Why you have to go up on
pregnant women and leaves them for dead, yet the whole town protects him? They said they had tip jars and support for him at local businesses. People could fund his trial in that small town.
Ridiculous.
It's stupid.
It's so ridiculous.
I can't imagine being the family, like the disgust. The absolute disgust I would have with that whole town.
The whole entire thing was spent on, the sheriff just has it out for him. It's like, yeah, because he
menace to fucking society.
Yeah, because he raped and left 2 pregnant women to die in the woods.
And then allegedly raped and murdered 3 Girl Scouts. Like, it's... and all fingers point to him.
I just have to know. I mean, I'm sure, but...
Sweet justice did come.
I'm sure there were plenty of people in the native side of it back then that were like, nah, he's a piece of shit.
Oh yeah, you could tell that detective was just like,
he's like, nah, the medicine man they interviewed was like,
didn't even want his identity out there. One of them,
they knew he was a piece of shit.
They don't want their name tread through freaking mud, but.
Oh, God.
Just 2 months later, in 1979, after the trial on June 4th, He died in prison of a heart attack in the jail yard exercising. So
and the weird thing about this, the superstitious side to it, is that the medicine man they interviewed said that they did this ritual to ease their mind, to be like, how are we gonna know what the ultimate truth is? And their answer was, if he is lying, if Hart is lying and he murdered those girls, he will forfeit his life after this. Yeah.
Wow.
And so he ended up dying of a heart attack in prison 2 months afterwards. Like,
hey.
I mean, his family did have a history of, like, young heart attacks,
Yeah.
but
his brother might have died of one too when he was 36. But I mean, hey, sweet justice nonetheless. The guy is not breathing and living, okay?
Well, it's just like,
he's not bothering other people.
Well, but that's the one thing I did like about the Chenoweth documentary, is that they kind of talk about how there's no closure.
Yeah.
Like, there is nothing good about this. Like, this story is just a failure on all sides. Like, there's no true justice. He never faces any type of real justice. Those women are forever traumatized by what he did to them. Those little girls never got to grow up because of him. And a bunch of kids got traumatized because of that. And there's just no winner in this scenario besides using this as an example of what
maybe not to do,
of what to look for, like signs and stuff, or like how to think about things critically, like to take things seriously,
how to be able to enjoy things like
but
Girl Scout camps, but make it safe and make it make people more accountable.
That's sad that it has to be that way. So yeah, really there is no good part about this story.
Yeah.
It's just bad.
It's bad.
It's just real sad.
And look, we know that this is technically an unsolved case, okay? But let's just say that,
they went as far to say that they tested the semen, right? And they took some of his sample.
Vasectomy, right?
They said that he had really weird semen. They said there was something really weird about his, like, the profile or whatever of his semen.
And yes, there's no actual, like, sperm and semen of somebody that got a vasectomy, but they proved post-mortem in his autopsy that it had been done incorrectly and it was unsuccessful. So there would be semen in it, but somebody did detect it and they were like, that's weird. This is some weird shit.
He has weird. But it matched because they said that the semen they scraped off was very
it matched for all three
strange.
Girls. Yeah.
But it only matched for a very narrow.
Yeah. And in the 1980s, they went over this. It matched 1 in 7,700 Native American males that would have maybe matched that profile. And he was the only Native American suspect, of course, and, all fingers pointed towards him. 2016, they raised 30 grand.
The mountain of evidence.
They're still working on it.
The mountain of evidence.
It's insanity.
I mean...
Like,
I like your glasses, Leroy.
Yeah.
Oh, they belong... Oh, let's see. These belong to Michelle in Camp...
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if that puts you at the scene of the crime.
Yeah. And it's like during the trials, I guess they wouldn't use some of his like tactics and the things that he had done in previous crimes and apply them to what he was alleged to do as well.
Oh yeah, it
was really weird.
Well, no, that's not uncommon though. There are, I forget, legally I don't know what the term is, but it's basically you can't drag a previous case into this case.
But hey,
like,
if the shoe fits.
Because it's considered tampering evidence, but like tampering their like biases against the person, but I mean, like, I'm sorry, like, shouldn't sometimes that be good? Like, if we find out someone's like, yeah, in 1974 they violently raped and murdered a couple of people, be like, well, goddamn, that sounds like really maybe weird. It might be them.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we know some of that? Like,
it's awful.
It's fucking terrible.
But that's Happy New Year.
Yeah.
If you want to learn more about this, they have a book called The Tent Number 8 by Joyd McCoy, released June 15th of 2011. And then some of the Oklahoma State Bureau investigating agents, and brothers Mike and Dick Wilkerson wrote a book called Someone Cry for the Children. And they also released a documentary, which you can watch. I kept saying it was 1996, but it's a 1993 documentary. And you can find that on YouTube. The Girl Scout Murders, Someone Cry for the Children. Google it.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh, but one of the narrators on the 93 documentary is none other than Johnny Cash.
Yeah. It was narrated by Dale Robertson and Johnny Cash, which really, you started listening, I'm like, is that Johnny Cash? And I'm like,
it opens with a Johnny Cash song. I'm like, goddamn, what is going on?
It was different. And then, of course, they have some versions from last year in 2022. They have a 4-part series on ABC about the Girl Scout murders. And then that is the one with Kristen Chenoweth. And it's, unless you want to hear, it could have been me, then you could just watch the 2020 documentary on the Girl Scout murders, released in October of last year. The one with Kristen Chenoweth was in May.
It wasn't good. I'm sorry. I love you, Kristen, but it was bad.
It was... It could have been done in like 30 minutes.
It was not good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But that is the Girl Scout murders. Mom, I hope you have some, I don't know. You feel good? I don't know.
I hope you feel better.
I took your,
I hope you feel seen. I don't know.
Yeah. It could have been you. I don't know. Could have been me. But it's over now.
Could have been me. I feel like such an asshole.
Anyway, not to make light of it, but we've at least learned
also
some things.
The thing about making Johnny Cash is like I just associate Johnny Cash with like a lot of happy memories, just really upbeat, like fun, like songs. And then you hear his voice talk about the most depressing, horrible shit. And then sing little ditties about...
And that documentary from the 90s really honed in on the supernatural side of things as well, which was a little interesting, but a little kooky at the same time. But
it was interesting.
It's legitimate for people of the Native American community, and there's a lot of lore and a lot of things that... it's an ancient thing. So,
yeah.
But...
it's cool.
Do I think Gene Lorahart was a skinwalker? No. Do I think he was most likely just an asshole that drug Native Americans' names through the dirt and their reputation? Yeah, probably. So...
I mean, several...
Well, they say what? Skinwalkers, you have to kill somebody.
Well, you know what they say.
Right?
They're... If you can imagine it, it's real. So there is a dimension.
Yeah. There
is a world in which... Yes.
Well, hopefully he's not skinwalking around still, so...
Skinwalking.
Anyway.
Well, as we do this show,
Who's to say?
I get closer and closer to being like,
Who's to say? Who knows? That's
yeah,
the mystery
could be.
Of life. We won't know until we're gone one day either. And maybe we'll... If we're ever so lucky, to be enlightened when we're gone one day. I don't know, but we'll all find out.
We are not meant to know. Bye.
Bye.
Spot how many times Emilee's really fucked up in this video.
No.